Hi, this is Mike Seifert coming at you with another video. Today we're going to talk about tenant screening. So maybe you're a small landlord or you're getting into the business and you want to know, how do I screen tenants? How do I get good tenants and not tenants that are going to default? Nothing's guaranteed, but there are methods to ensure that you get a very reasonable tenant. Now, I used to own 20 properties between 2008 and 2012, and I signed over hundreds. I've done over 100 leases at least. And I can tell you that I've screened many people. And out of all that experience, I've learned certain things. And that's what we're going to share now. So number one in the ad, you're going to put obviously the price of the home. Let's say it's $1,000 per rent. The description of the home, obviously where it's at, location, special features, and then under that will be the requirements. So the number one should be definitely you're going to need an application fee of $40. There'll be an application. Two will be you will need proof of income. Number three, you're going to want to ask them in there, when you say proof of income, you're going to ask them for 2 to 2.5 times their net income. So this is very important to get this ratio correctly, because you have to think sometimes for the tenant. Think about their expenses monthly. Think about logically what they're going to do if there's an emergency. So basically, if your rent is $1,000 a month, you're going to want to see the tenant netting, not grossing, netting at least $2,000 to $2,500. That means they probably make about $3,200, $3,300 a month. And so that's very important in case their car breaks down. I can guarantee you they're going to pay their car repair bill first before they pay the landlord. Now, not everybody's like that, but from my experience, they have to get to work and they have to make money. So they're going to pay, some of those other bills first and possibly be late on the rent. So that's one thing. Proof of income and at least 2.5 times their net income is a good cushion. The second thing is a credit check. A credit check is so important. You want to put in there credit check required. Now, that might scare some people, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to weed out the tenants that are not paying their bills. So what's going to happen is your requirements are going to have to be, your scrutiny is going to have to be less depending on the location of the home. So let's say the house is in a lower income neighborhood. And not everybody's going to have great credit. So you're going to have to say maybe they have a credit score of 620, 640. You're going to have to require, something like that, like a 620, 640 and higher. You can't require a 700 credit score because that's going to knock out probably a lot of your potential tenants. Now, in a high rent district where you're getting $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month for a property, yes, you can absolutely require a 700 credit score, a 720. Whatever you feel is high enough to make you feel comfortable. So requiring the credit score means that it's going to show you how they pay their bills. That's just how it is. Now, you're probably asking, Mike, I don't run credit. How do I get their credit report? Here's how you do it. Now remember, we're asking them for an application fee of $40. So when you're talking to them, you're going to tell them, I'm going to waive your application fee of $40. And what I'm going to do is apply that to you, and you're going to actually buy an Experian.com credit report. They're going to go to Experian.com and they're going to buy a 3-bureau credit report, not just one. They're going to buy the full 3 credit bureau report, which is going to be Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Now they will submit this credit report. Now, they're not going to order, let me just mention this point. They're not going to order it from Credit Karma. They're not going to order it from Credit Sesame, none of the free ones. It must be a requirement that it's Experian.com, because they're very close to being official than Credit Karma. And so they're going to submit that with their application. You're going to look it over. You're going to see if their credit score matches your requirements, and then that's good. That's going to tell you if they pay their bills or not. If they have a lot of delinquents, most likely it's not going to be good credit. If they have like one delinquent, but for the most part, their credit cards are paid, things look good, that's fine. So that's a very important requirement, credit. Oh, the other thing I want to mention, the application fee. If you get a prospective tenant that calls up and says, hey, They're arguing with you about the application fee. They don't want to pay it. They're asking you, why do I have to pay this? That's a bad sign. That's probably somebody you don't want to deal with. They're probably not going to pay their bills. An application fee is a requirement no matter what. If they're willing to pay that with no problem, they comply with everything you're asking, that's a good sign that they're a good tenant. They probably don't have anything to hide if they're complying with everything you're asking them and they're providing proof. That's going to be a very positive sign. So the other thing is one landlord reference. You're going to ask them for at least one reference via email or a letter from their previous landlord. Now, if they don't have one or they can't get one, maybe they're coming from out of state. I recently leased for a friend of mine his condo out to a person that was from out of state, and he didn't have a landlord reference, but I made sure he had the income and had a job and he had a reasonable credit. So that's what kind of helped me determine that, and it's been 2.5 years I've had that tenant in his condo. He's paid on time ever since. So that's important. So if they don't have a landlord reference, it's not going to break the deal, but they should have one if they can get it. The other thing I want to say is that, okay, we're going to go to now, what do you do when they come out to the house? So they're going to come out to the house, they call you up, they're okay with the credit check, the application fee, and the proof of income. So what are you going to require them when they come out? Number one, you want to see if they're on time. If they come out there and they're late, 15, 20 minutes late, that's not a good sign. If they're 15, 20 minutes early, that's a great sign. That means they're excited about the property. That's positive. If they never show up at all, and then they call you the next day and want to reschedule, and they want to come out, the next day or a day later, that's going to be a bad sign, especially if they didn't tell you they couldn't make it. Now, if they called you and said, hey, I have a family emergency, I can't make it, I would like to reschedule for, Thursday, and this is like a Tuesday, they're calling you on, and they schedule for 3 o'clock on a Thursday, and they come out there, they're on time, and everything's good, that's probably okay. Maybe it was legitimate at that point. But if they never show up and then they call to reschedule, which I've had happen many times, usually I try not to reschedule with them because I know they're not going to be a good tenant. I just don't feel comfortable with that type of way of acting, so to speak. The other thing is the person's vehicle. Now, you can't always judge a book by its cover, but in this case, you do want to look at what kind of vehicle they're driving. And what I mean by that is the vehicle very old? Is it rusty? Is it falling apart? Does it sound bad when they pull up, like it's going to die? The reason why we look at this is because Murphy's Law states that if it's going to happen, it's going to, whatever the Murphy's Law is, it could happen to you as a landlord. So that car may break down in the next year. And so they're definitely going to pay that car bill before the repair bill before they pay the rent. That's just how it is sometimes. So you want to see if they have a really bad car, it's really broken down. It may be a sign that they're having some problems. They may not be able to afford $1,000 a month. On the other hand, if they pull up in a leased vehicle, a newer car, especially if it's a lease, like a 1 or 2 year old model, that's a good sign. That means at least they have good credit. And if they were on time and the car's clean, perhaps, that's a good sign. It's not the ultimate sign. It's just something to keep in your mind, just to think about when you're screening, when you see them in person. So being on time is important, and the type of the shape of their vehicle is important, but not as is important. So the other thing is you're never going to want to collect cash from them. You're always going to want to get a money order or certified check from the bank. Now, both of these can always be canceled as well. But the reason is you always want documentation and you want a paper trail. People that pay cash, it's okay. But if you're going to be a professional landlord and you're going to grow and you want to build a portfolio, you want to not accept cash. Now, some people like it. They don't pay taxes on it. They collect it. That's fine. But if you want to be legitimate, you want to make copies of everything, and you want to have all the payment records and everything. I had a situation once where I had a tenant that paid in all $100 bills. It was $800, and it was all bills from 1980. And it really looked like fake $100 bills, and I was very uncomfortable taking it. So I went back to the house. I said, unfortunately, we can't accept cash. Can you please go to the party store down the street and get a money order? And that's what we did. And so I felt comfortable. He gave me a money order. I was like, all right, that's great. I cashed that and we're fine. I didn't want to, end up cashing fake $100 bills at the bank and thinking it was me. The bank thinking that was me. So don't just stay away from cash. If you have other people collecting for you, they can steal it. Dealing with cash is tough. And, most likely you're going to have to go collect it directly yourself. The best way to collect is through a check or ACH, automatic, deposit. And there's ways of setting that up with your bank, ACH. So that's one thing. Oh, proof of income. Now, here's the other thing you're going to collect upon the application. Proof of income. You're going to want to collect at least probably 3 months of bank statements, not check stubs. You want to get bank statements, and here's the reason why. You will be able to see a deposit if they have a weekly pay. You can see weekly deposits going in, so you know that they have the paycheck coming in every week, at least for the past 90 days. Also, if they give you just check stubs, they can fake those. They can produce those. If they insist on giving you their tax return, you can take a tax return, but it must come from the IRS directly. You're going to fill an IRS form. I forgot which number it is. It's a transcript request form, and they're going to send that to you directly. If they don't want to do that, they don't want to sign that to release their latest tax return to you through the IRS form, that's a bad sign. I've had someone in the past that I took their tax return in good faith. Come to find out it was a fake tax return. I never got the tax return directly from the IRS. And so that's what we do now. I make sure that I get the tax return directly from the government, so I know exactly what they filed. So those are about all the tips I have for today. And if you have any questions or concerns, leave a comment.